All right, very good.
I'll move as he moves. I'll follow him.
Thank you. Oh, my
¿Cómo estamos?
Todo bien, hermano.
Buenos días, buenos días. ¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Están comiendo o no desean hablar? ¿Cómo Ani? Eso.
Okay, I got my coffee now.
All righty. Espresso, no?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming out early today. Gracias por venir aquí hoy. In East Harlem, right 116th Street, El Barrio. So welcome to East Harlem. And thank you all for being part of the community, for being interested in what's happening in the community, and for being a part of the solutions to the problems that we face. And so we're here, I'm here to listen to you. Yo estoy aquí para escucharle a ustedes y escuchar los problemas o las quejas que ustedes tengan, to hear your complaints and the suggestions that you may have. That's what I'm here for today. But before I listen to you, and I want to get to listen to all of you, if possible. Quiero escuchar a todos ustedes. So I'm going to do less talking and more listening, right? Voy a hablar menos y voy a escuchar más. De manera que, but first let me just go over two things that I think are important, or several things that are important for this district, and then I'll listen to you, all right? Vamos a escuchar varias cosas que son importantes para ustedes y después entonces le voy a escuchar. First, 2nd Avenue, right? The 2nd Avenue subway, which is coming from 96th Street all the way to 125th Street, and is going to connect East Harlem to the rest of the world. That's how I see it. But it's got to be done responsibly, right? That has to be for the community, not to kick you out, but to keep you in. right? And the services that it provides must be for the thousands of people that have to walk all the way to Lexington Avenue to catch the most overcrowded subway line in the world. Right, so this is a transportation desert. You have the people on Pleasant Avenue have to walk all the way west to Lexington Avenue to catch the subway there. And that's a transportation desert. So we see the number of accidents in these streets, pedestrian, are very high because people have to walk through all that traffic to get to the subway, right? Nosotros vamos a hablar del tren de la Segunda Avenida que viene de las 96 hasta las 125 y es un proyecto que debe de servir para la comunidad y no para expulsarla, sino para brindarle servicios de primera clase de transporte público. So it's a $7 billion project. And we just don't want 3 subway stops. We want a transportation hub on 125th Street. That's why we have with us Uptown Grand Central. Where's Uptown Grand Central? That's up. There we go. The idea is to have a transportation hub that will connect to Metro North there on 125th Street, to future water transportation on the Harlem and Hudson River, and to bus service to LaGuardia Airport, right? Express bus service to LaGuardia Airport. That will connect East Harlem to the rest of the world, bring jobs and bring economic vitality to the neighborhood, right? I see a lot of the buildings here are empty, but they're not, and we have the potential to create better conditions for NYCHA and for the housing stock in the community. But you must be part of this effort. Ustedes deben ser parte de este esfuerzo del tren de la Segunda Avenida. Aquí tenemos Uptown Grand Central, que es una organización que está trabajando para asegurar que sea así. It also is also going to provide jobs, right? The first phase, which went downtown, went right through the richest zip codes in the country. So they didn't care about the jobs, but we care about the jobs, right? La primera faceta del tren que bajó de la 96 para abajo, a esa comunidad realmente no le puso mucha atención a los empleos, porque son los códigos postales más ricos del país, pero a nosotros sí. And so we're working with the Rangel Institute at City College to train people, and the unions to train people so they can get those jobs. And we know what they are because we know what they were for the first phase. We got the template for the first phase. So we know how many electricians they need, sandhogs, we know how many carpenters they need, we know everybody, we know the job classifications and how many jobs are needed, and so we can go to the table saying these are the jobs we want our community to get them, and we could train our young people for them. Así que también nosotros queremos de que sea una oportunidad de desarrollo económico para la comunidad. Okay. Yeah, that Second Avenue subway right now is in the engineering stage, and we're hoping that this year we'll get a full budget agreement, funding agreement, and that we start the following year on 24. Okay, that's where we're going. The train is leaving the station. Okay. Estamos en la faceta de ingeniería, pero esperamos que se pueda llegar a un acuerdo presupuestario ya este año para que comience la construcción el año que viene. And so we want to make sure that the housing, the NYCHA housing stack comes to the table, and they tell us what their needs are. And we know, for example, that in 96th Street, when they did it, there was a rat problem in Washington houses because they migrated when the construction began. So we want to mitigate all of that and make sure it doesn't happen in the second phase. Okay. This week, the mayor announced a new Harlem rat mitigation zone. There's a lot of problems with rodents and rats here. we're gonna declare war on rats. Look at Raul, he's laughing. Raul is gonna be the general of that war. He's got a couple of lieutenants there with him. You see the rat with that pizza going down the subway, right? We're gonna get him too. All right. And so the mayor announced Kathleen Karate, who's going to be the new rat czar, and he's going to invest $3.5 million, right, to launch a rat mitigation zone right here in Harlem and in East Harlem. El alcalde va a poner 3.5 millones de dólares para tratar de mitigar la presencia y la epidemia de ratas en el barrio y en Harlem también. Y él anunció eso este año. This includes 28 NYCHA properties, right? 73 New York City parks, Community Board 9 and 10, 70 schools, and over 10,000 private properties. Those are the areas that are going to be targeted. Right, Randy? You going to be part of the Rat Patrol? He's another general. Hey, Raul, he's a 5-star general. And Cherise is a generalissima. All right. So that's an announcement for the community, right? Okay. And then on this week also, we met with the EPA administrator, the Environmental Protection Agency administrator. Say hello to your councilwoman, Diana Ayala. Come in, Diana. Trying to be shy over there. She's not shy.
She's loved.
Okay, she's doing a great job, and we support her.
The best job.
And we will continue to work with her. Ella está haciendo un gran trabajo. My favorite councilwoman. Los otros se ponen celosos cuando yo digo eso. They get jealous. They get jealous when they see all this love. Okay. So we were talking about 2nd Avenue Subway. Diana is very much involved in that. We were talking about the mayor's announcement for the mitigation, the Harlem Rat Migration Mitigation Zone. And now we're talking about the EPA, right? So the Environmental Protection Agency, the administrator, Michael Reagan, was here this week in the Riverbank State Park in West Harlem. And he announced $10 million for WEAC. Where's Mark? Mark, where are you? Mark is part of WEAC. He's going to get the $10 million all for himself. The $10 million, right, is for WEAC, the West Harlem Environmental Action Group, to train the community groups so they can access funding that's available for environmental projects, right? So, for example, if you want to see a green zone, there's a whole east side esplanade, right? There's money in the budget over $100 million, $300 million. When I get next to her, it triples. Yeah. So it's going to go from 96th Street all the way up to Inwood, to Dykeman Street, right? On the east side, right? And so, but if you have a particular project, ustedes tienen un proyecto para hacer el ambiente, and this coming Saturday is Earth Day, right? So we're going to be out cleaning the street, planting trees. For example, we need more trees here in East Harlem because we have bad quality of air. We need more trees. So if you have a project, you have a community-based group, and you have a project to plant trees, WEAC is now going to be able to train you to write the proposal for the federal government to get the funding because it's very complicated. So they're going to have like grant writers, accountants, people that are there to assist you, and they got $10 million from the EPA to do that regionally right here in New York City. So Diana and I are going to sit down and we're going to figure out which are those environmental projects in the community and which are the groups that we can work with so they can get the technical assistance to access those dollars, right? Yeah. Those are the three things I wanted to talk to you about, because I told you esas son las tres cosas que quería hablarle, pues yo le dije que quería escuchar. I just wanted to listen, but I'm going to allow the councilwoman to say a couple of words and then we'll listen.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos días. I won't say a lot because I also came to listen. También vine a oír su creencias, las cosas que le preocupan. I want to hear about the things that worry you. I think that, you know, in terms of what the state of this community is a little bit half and half, right? We have a lot of commitments, as you've heard from the Congress member. A lot of capital money coming into our community, a lot of investments are coming into our community, and a lot of really great opportunities are coming into our community. But we're not blind, and we know, right, where we live, and we know that we have issues. Just last night, you know, we had another shooting on 115th Street and Lexington Avenue. Where, you know, a young person was shot in the stomach. We had a domestic dispute at Johnson where, unfortunately, a woman lost her life. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done, but I want you to know that there's a lot of commitment from your elected officials, and that we're out here every single day. And I know, you know, I get the frustration sometimes. This morning I got an email from this woman that says, "What else are you guys doing except doing parties at La Marqueta?" You know? And I kid you not. This was a real email, and she says, you know, there's all these people using drugs around there, and you guys are not doing anything, and that's absolutely not true. And I don't want you to leave here thinking that that's true. We have been working with every single agency to try to address the opioid crisis in this community. The opioid crisis is affecting us nationally. This is not an East Harlem problem, but unfortunately, it's very real to our community, right? And so we have seen an uptick in the use of heroin in the last few years. And there's a new drug called fentanyl that has been introduced into the heroin that makes it a lot more powerful. And so, you know, we've seen a number of fair share of opioid-related deaths in the community, and that's what you're seeing in the street, right? That's exactly what you're seeing, and the pandemic didn't make it any easier. But it is getting better, little by little. Every single day we chip away at it in a way that is humane. We're finding people treatment that they need, right? Because people that have substance abuse disorder don't need to be in jail. We know that, right? Many of us, me included, have several people in my family who suffer from substance use that need help, not jail. And so we're out here, we're working, but I really want to hear from all of you, and I'm so excited to see so many beautiful faces so early in the morning on a Saturday, and the commitment that you have for your community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And let me just say some of the projects that we worked on together. Diana and I worked on bringing $1.2 million to La Marqueta. Yes. Not just for the party, but for a brand new kitchen, right? And we're working now on several other initiatives, which include, hopefully we'll get the funding for $2 million for Union Settlement for the East River Community House Renovation Project. That's the senior center. And one of Diana's other asks was the school. What's the school, Diana? I'm sorry. Yes. The East River Elementary Project Playground. All right, so those are the ones that we're working on.
And as our Congress member mentioned, we do have over $340 million that's going into the Esplanade. But part of that money, which was one of the $7 million from former Assembly member Robert Rodriguez, for the pier, for Pier 107. So, you know, when you go in the Esplanade, there's a little pier there that, you know, people used to use it to go fishing or whatever, and it's been closed for a couple of years now. So we're renovating that entire pier, and there's been a couple of community, yes, it's gonna be really, really nice. So hopefully we can do, you know, we can use it for programming, you know, for music, for movies, for whatever you want, but you should know that that's coming. And then two, we've also, the congressman is very shy, but we've also been working very diligently to try to get money for Metropolitan Hospital. Metropolitan Hospital is our only public hospital here in the East Harlem part of the district. And it's, you know, for many of us that go there, it's very outdated. The emergency room is really outdated, the patient rooms are really outdated, and so we're working to try to get the money that we need to, we're starting with the emergency room, which is gonna cost about $65 million to renovate. So we're working on that, not only just Adriano and I, but we've also included other elected officials into the conversation to see if we could get them that necessary money.
Yes, and that's a major project, the emergency room. I hope to bring the Secretary of Health, Secretary Becerra. I'm bringing all the secretaries to my district so they see the condition. So that's why I had the EPA administrator, I had the Secretary of Labor, and now hopefully we'll bring soon Secretary Becerra to visit the emergency room at Metropolitan Hospital to see the condition. We want to welcome Bishop Brown from Bethel for being here. Yeah. There's another initiative the mayor and I have been working on greater police presence on 125th Street and the adjacent area. And I personally have been meeting with some of the methadone and the opioid programs in the area to see if we could decentralize them, because they're all gathered together in one like 4 or 5 block radius, and that's just too much for the neighborhood. And we're saying, we're not saying that we won't carry our load because we're sensitive to the issue, but we're not going to take more than we deserve either. So I spoke to Mount Sinai. I'm going to this past week. I'm going to continue to speak to the independent operators to see how we can work on a plan to decentralize them. You know, if we have 10 of them, you know, Park Avenue, I'm talking about in the South, right? They deserve to have one too, right? Let everybody carry their loads. 75% of the folks that come for services are from outside the community. You know, we're not saying we're not going to help out, but we're not going to carry more than we should carry. And so we're going to work, and we're going to go back to you and ask for your support. Okay, so that's an important initiative. The mayor has been very interested in the public safety issue on 125th Street. Okay, there was a nasty homicide there just like a couple of days ago, and we're paying attention to it. And so more police, more services. I brought in $500,000 for violence disruptor, young people that will be able to go to the corner and defuse a conflict before it turns into a homicide. Okay, so now let's listen to you, and we'll go in order. I'll go that side, middle, and that side, and nobody gets mad. I'm gonna try to be fair. All right, over there, the young man over here. Anybody in the middle? Nobody. The young lady here and right here. Young man, go ahead.
Louder?
No, go ahead. I can hear you.
All right. So
Here you go. Here you go.
on my notes.
Question, please. No speeches. You leave the speeches to me and Diana.
Just an outline. So
Question. Give me the question direct.
So the Q train coming up here is an amazing thing, and I think it's going to help people get to work, come to work safely. But how do we stop something like that from gentrifying our community?
That's a great question, right? That's a great question. How do we stop something like that from gentrifying the community? First, there is significant housing stock for NYCHA there. So Diana and I are invested in protecting NYCHA housing, going against any sort of privatization of NYCHA, and we want to see how that project improves the quality of life in NYCHA. Now there's a bunch of other buildings here that are privately owned, right? So we have to sit down and contextualize the project and make sure that none of the rises come up that will then further displace the community. Diana has been a strong advocate at taking a look at any development and in size and composition in terms of income, and she will continue to fight to ensure that the neighborhood remains accessible and affordable. And again, this is a project to provide public transportation for about over 150,000 people who take that subway. And these are working class people that live in the community. So this is a high-end project for working class families. Okay, and that's what I hope that it does. Next question over here. Oh, sorry.
Good morning. My question is, my aunt and my mother reside in the neighborhood. My mom and my aunt reside in the neighborhood. My father lives in the senior buildings down by Mount Pleasant. The conditions they're living in housing right now, NYCHA, is not improving. It's getting worse. Every day it's getting worse. There's water falling down, people living without cabinets, people living without stoves. And my thing is, I contacted your office. I didn't get any results. So I will contact you again to see where we can move forward. Because my aunt is sick, and she was living in a condition where it was like waterfalls coming out of her apartment. There was no place for her to go and sleep because she was in a studio. There was water coming down in the kitchen, the living room, and the bathroom. And I was vigilant and calling people, finally got her cabinets. She just had another waterfall from upstairs. Somebody, one of the employees broke a pipe. Toilet water falling into her apartment again after they fixed everything else. And now, that took almost a year and a half of been fighting to get that done. But that shouldn't be my fight. She should be able to call somebody, and those resources should be there to help her, help my mother, help my father, who've been in the community for over 50 years. You know, I also work for New York City Transit. I retired, so there's a lot I can say about that too, because whenever money goes into a big program like that, or a big project, there needs to be accountability, and where that money's going, and what it's being done for. And I think that everybody's community, you know, represents a lot of people from different cultures and backgrounds. And I just want to know what's going to be done about NYCHA. I hear a lot of NYCHA, a lot of funding, but who's holding people accountable for what they're doing with the money? Because people are not even cleaning. So that's my question to you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Well, I had a recent meeting with the leadership of the different NYCHA developments in the district, and I had the new interim CEO of NYCHA. I don't know if you guys were in the meeting, but it was on 125th Street in the state office building. And you know, I'll follow it up with Diana, you know, and the reason why we have those meetings is so that each tenant, and Roddy was there and some of the other folks were there, is to get the complaints, the very individual complaints, like apartment 6D on such an address. And then Shana will follow it up. Now, a lot of the problems inside the building have to do with really the envelope of the building, meaning the roof and the pointing, the brickwork around the building. You know? So in many cases, you know, you make a repair, and very often because the water is seeping in through the bricks or the roof is in disrepair, you're going to get that again within months or if not a year. And so there must be major investment in these capital projects, like the envelope of the building, the boiler, elevator, windows. That's the infrastructure of the building. And so the pipe problem, I'm not sure to what that's an, you know, we'll have to see. But often what we see is that if you get mold and then come and fix it, it comes right back because there's a problem with the envelope of the building. But let me allow the councilwoman to answer.
Yeah, well, first of all, if any of you are calling my office and you don't feel like your issue has been addressed, I suggest that you call back and ask to speak to the chief of staff, because our staff works really hard. We obviously cannot create miracles, right? We do what we can within, you know, with the resources that we have. But, you know, the Congress member and I had a press event a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, right, with Senator Schumer, asking for $80 billion in capital funding for NYCHA, because in New York City alone, we need a total, at that time, we needed $40 billion. I'm sure it's a little bit higher now with inflation. But it failed, right? It failed in the Senate. Congress voted it out and the Senate voted it down. So, you know, there's a lot that can be done, and that's why you guys are hearing a lot of conversation about what the future of public housing is going to be. Because if we can't get the money from the federal government, the city cannot afford to take the, you know, sole responsibility for NYCHA. The state gives us some money, but not enough. So we're really patching stuff up, right? And there has to be a real conversation about what that looks like. So we have discussed, you know, the city has discussed, you know, moving some of the smaller buildings over to Pact and Rad, so that way those buildings enter a private public partnership with like let's say it's CNC management, right? I'm just using them as an example. And then they will manage the building, but they qualify for money to do all of the repairs. And there's also a trust that's being discussed now that would they will move people out of their apartments, right? That's 2,700 units only, so it's not gonna touch everybody. But if you qualify, if your building, opts in, then you get all of the complete renovations, but that's gonna take years. So none of the solutions that we have at the table are gonna be immediate. And we will continue to work with all of you, right, to continue to make sure that at least, in the immediate, we're addressing whatever issues we can. But the truth is that that leak is going to come back. It's going to continue to come back until we all collectively can sit down and say, okay, you know what, enough is enough. Let's explore every option on the table, and let's get together on a plan, all right? There's so much infighting. So much infighting. People are like, we don't want to pump, we don't want you to, where you're trying to privatize public housing. No. Nobody's trying to privatize public housing. We want to make sure that you guys are part of the conversation so that you're weighing in on your own future. And I say that as a public housing resident myself. I grew up in Lillian-Wood houses. My brothers live there. My sister lives in Taft houses on the 17th floor with a disabled child when an elevator is always broken. She can't even get into the bathroom because it's not, ADA accessible. So I get it, we get it. It's not us, right? But we are fighting for those dollars to come in.
And we did include, not the 80, we couldn't get the 80, but we included $60 billion in the Build Back Better initiative, and we passed it in the House, but the Senate voted it down. That's where we are. So we'll try again. And until we get that capital money to come in, it's going to be tough. And we're going to tell you straight like it is. But we're fighting every day. The individual problems, you bring them to us, and our office will be your mouthpiece to make sure that you're responsible. Over here.
What are you going to do when people...
Wait, one second. I don't know. I said here, and here. So if you don't want to ask the question, I'll give it to this person. And then I'll go back. Bro, you get up your shot.
I can speak loudly. They can hear me.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a single mom that lives in Taft houses with my 2 young children. Safety is a major concern of mine. The amount of drug addicts and homeless people that are on our staircase. You call the police, you call PSA 5 to be more specific.
They do nothing.
They do nothing if they show up. Because most of the time, they don't show up. When they show up, they can't make an arrest. They blame the politicians. The politicians blame NYPD. NYPD blames the mayor. What's going on here? Somebody needs to be held accountable. I don't feel safe where I live.
Well, thank you for your commitment. I'll go to Taft when I'm back from Washington. I'll go visit you.
Oh,
but I understand. Again, now I'm not passing the buck on anybody. I take my own responsibility, and I have a contract that I sign every 2 years. It's called an election, right? And so, and I want to be like Aaron Judge. I want you to give me the best contract in town.
We want you back.
Okay, but public safety, nothing matters in our neighborhoods unless public safety is addressed. And I'm working with the mayor, again, to bring more police officers. I understand there's a component of it that's mental health. I understand there's a big component of it that's opioid. Now, the opioid crisis is national, right? It's national, but what I said earlier is we should not have to carry an overload for the rest of the city right here in East Harlem. No, absolutely not. I'm going to be fighting against that, right? Mental health, the governor has put in the budget, and she's fighting to include in the budget several $100 million for the mental health crisis. You have, for example, Wards Island, right? The folks from Wards Island are dumped on 125th Street. So if they want to go to Brooklyn because they have a family member, or the Bronx, or Queens, they're just dumped there by bus. Why not have a bus route that takes them where they want to go, and then they linger around? I understand the issue. Now, the violence issue among young people, that's a deep one that we're going to have to wrestle with. That's a deep one that we're going to have to wrestle with. And that's at the center of a lot of the homicides that are going on in our community, right? Now, as I said earlier, I put in $500,000 for violence disruptors. Those are the group of young people that they're credible. They're young people, they know how to talk to each other. Very often we understand those girls. I'm 35 years old. How could they understand me, right? I got you. But you know, they could diffuse maybe the conflict before it turns into a violent act. One question, when they're trying to answer it to you. But I'll go to Taft and I'll walk with you and you show me.
Would you be willing to take the stairs?
Yes, no, which are my bad knees, we'll go up the stairs. Diana.
You may have to call the ambulance afterwards. But you'll be there. I
Your
believe
office
him.
has
I
been
believe
helpful.
him. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I have reached out to your office
Thank
on
you.
several occasions.
Yeah.
It's NYPD, truthfully.
Yeah.
It's PSA 5.
Okay, so we'll follow
I'm going to tell you
up.
why. What happened is, so we put in the cameras in all of Taft, right, to at least try to prevent things from happening. As you see around 115th, 116th Street, there's been a lot of activity. I assume that a lot of that, because I actually created a working group for 125th Street, so we have been dealing with a lot of those issues that are here when they were over there. And now we included 116th Street. So I assume that the drug dealing that was happening on Lexington was impacting what was happening on Park and was impacting what was happening at Taft. It turns out that there's a lot of drug dealing in a couple of apartments at Taft. So whenever you see a lot of drug usage, you see a lot of people that are using drugs, they pretty much tell you where the drugs are.
Right.
You know, it's very easy. You don't have to be you don't have to be a cop to figure out where the drugs are. You just follow the people. And so we were able to, while we were trying to clean up under the Metro North, we were able to make an arrest of a young man who actually gave information, and there was a big bust at Taft. So we have seen a swift, decrease in the number of people that are there, but it doesn't mean that, that it's still not happening. It's not happening in the same way that it was last summer, but it's still happening. On the NYPD front, what I'll tell you is that the entire city is suffering from a workforce shortage, and that it also includes the NYPD. And unfortunately for us, we have 3 precincts, the PSA, the 2-3, and the 2-5. All of them are understaffed, and all of them are dealing with an abundance of issues. When I tell you I've had at least 12 shootings this week alone, I've had 12 shootings this week alone. Just last night I was mentioning, and we had a domestic dispute that turned deadly at Johnson as well. So they're doing more than their fair share. So we've asked also from the NYPD for additional resources, and we are getting, and the NYPD, actually PSA 5, we met yesterday just on this with the task force, and they are getting additional bodies. So you should be seeing a little bit more relief, but quite frankly, they're paying more attention right now to the gun violence than the drugs. I'm sorry.
Okay. In addition to that, we're working with the police department. They have a particular youth initiative. It's called
Little Giants.
the Little Giants. They're working in Southeast Queens and Harlem and East Harlem, and so we're going to bring them additional dollars to work with the young people. I think it's a good program. We got to get young people talking to the police department again. I mean, we got to talk to them, because when there is a violent incident, we don't call a carpenter, we don't call a dentist, we call a cop, right? And so we got to be able to communicate with them, right? Okay, over here, right here, young man. Anybody in the middle? Right here, and then over here. The young man, get back. Go ahead, yes.
Okay. I'll speak loudly. So I went to school in East Harlem. I work in East Harlem. You probably see my face already. So I'm concerned with seniors, and I'm concerned with the human services. So I want to know how you guys continue to be champions for those issues, as well as affordable housing. So a lot of the things people are talking about, right, we need to figure out, we need to address the root causes, right? Housing insecurity.
And I'm asking the governor to consider adopting a bill similar to a bill that was passed in New Jersey by their governor that would increase all SNAP benefits by at least, I think it's $93 a month. It's obviously, with inflation being what it is, even, independent of COVID, I think that it merits, right, that we look at how families are making do. I used to get food stamps, and I know that, it's hard, right, to try to make those dollars stretch until the end of the month. And I know, you know, that you have to make sacrifices, and we're using our pantries a little bit more. So we are putting money into the pantries. We are asking the state to put in more money. And we are working with our nonprofit community. In terms of the housing insecurity stuff, I get it. We're building, you know, we're trying to build, we're trying to make it easier. Also, as the chair of the General Welfare Committee, we have a couple of bills to eliminate the 90-day rule in shelter. We have the highest number of people in shelter to date. We have over 63,000 people in shelter. And so we're trying to make sure that whoever qualifies for a voucher, because, you know, unfortunately what happens is everybody has a different unique need for housing, right? Some people need regular, you know, they can afford to pay for an apartment, they just haven't been lucky enough to find one. But you have people that need subsidized housing, and we don't have enough of that, right? And so we're asking for an expansion of the eligibility rule for the City Fest voucher, and hopefully that's something that we're negotiating through this year's budget.
In addition to that, the governor has a substantial amount of dollars for housing. We want to make sure that that turns into affordable housing. And the borough president has done a survey of available lots and available sites for the construction of affordable housing for each community board. And so we'll be looking to forward that list to the governor and push for the construction of affordable housing in the district. Right here.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'm here representing La Villa Merchants Association, which is a small group of businesses in 116. And our concern is also the community. We would like to know if we could have cameras on 116th Street and on Lexington Avenue, which is probably will be a lot of help for the police since there's not a big amount. Also, we would like to know if there could be more lighting, like if private buildings could be forced to have lights. Usually after 9, there's a big section of buildings that do not have outdoor lighting, and I think that's also an increase in the criminal activities. And the third would be, can laws be changed? Because there's a lot of criminals committing crimes, and then they're released a month later. Like, we need that to change. We cannot have someone with 20 arrests and then being released. Like, we need to change that for crimes to stop happening in the area.
First, if you could give us the list of the sites. We have a pilot project with the police department and coming up, and the chambers of commerce and the different commercial strips. And part of it will be the installation of cameras in businesses, better lighting, plexiglass dividers, stuff like that that will be crime prevention initiatives. So if you could give us the addresses of those sites, and we'll see when we get, if and when we get the funding, we're looking to work with the police department in addressing some of those security issues in the commercial arteries.
We also have the Hispanic Federation that we give them money.
Okay, and the Hispanic Federation also got some funding to work with the local businesses in the district. Last year they got the funding. It should be kicking in now. So if you give us the sites,
give us your contact.
The addresses, we'll forward it to them. Diana?
Yeah, and the congressman and I actually also worked with Union Settlement Association to fund the Neighborhood 360 program, which was supposed to help with the Merchants Association organizing and eventually, hopefully, a bid. But we fund that because those are resources that come to the small businesses. So if you're not a part of that network, Michelle Cruz, I believe now, is the head of that. You know, you should definitely make, but that, her program is the program that we fund, right? And we fund that because we want to make sure that, because we don't have a bid here, that you're not left out of, you know, the opportunity of, you know, organizing and advocating, you know, for better resources for the small business community as well. And we'll continue. We actually have to renew their contract, but it's something that we're committed to doing.
First, before I go to the next question, I want to thank you. Every time we do this in East Harlem, we get the most amount of people. So give yourself a round of applause.
Yeah, I hear you politicians speaking. I love what you say, but sometimes when we call your offices, Diana, you're remarkable. You've been around a long time. I've seen you You know, we're facing a serious issue in schools, and violence is prevalent. Violence is prevalent in the projects. I've been a teacher for 24 years, and I work at Westside High School, and I worked for Everyday Reynolds, who passed away, and he created a school, right? He created a school to take care of each other. He created a school for children to make sure that there was violence prevention, right? And so that's one of the leading schools, and on my back is Each One Teach One. This is about gun violence. I invited politicians to a tournament against our kids dying in the streets. Some of you didn't show up. Also, Westside High School is being transferred from the east side to the west side. That is, what are we trying to do? There's op warfare. Our kids are killing each other. Do you want our kids to continue to die? Die or not? I really speak for you highly because you showed up to those meetings. But now I want to talk about real solutions. See, I bought here's a question. If I bought 36 acres of land where our kids can have fields, when I look at these fields, I don't see many Black and Hispanic children on these fields anymore. They're consumed by private organizations. What are we doing? What are we doing about our fields? What are we doing about our children's holistic health? I'm leading a real fight. And you know what? If I got land, here's the question. If I got land to build, and I'm saying I contributed to all of you, the state, the city, the governor's office, and I love Robert Rodriguez, so I want to say that because he was a man that I honor. And I worked for Abril Clayton Powell and Charlie Rangel, was a young kid coming out of college. And both of them, the four. Well, look, and this is what I want to tell you. I see our kids, they're not in our specialized schools, they're not doing well. They're not getting accepted. How do we have our kids compete? So my question is this. I have a solution, and I can bring them to a place. Will you help me bring kids so they can play soccer, tennis, golf, take them out of Harlem so they can do something different? Because I am so tired, and can you resurrect Westside High School and make sure you don't endanger kids? Because I have 1,000 signatures here. Here's my question, brother. I heard you speak, but give me a minute because I'm talking real shit. So here's my question. Are you going to help me right now? And I'm asking you, will you help this whole community uplift our children? Uplift our children with this land? Because I'll give it to you if you give our kids opportunities.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your commitment to the kids. And yes, let me say something first. Okay.
Real dialogue.
Randall's Island, right? Randall's Island is right across, really, right across from us. And for the first time, it's now in my district, right? Because they redistricted the area. It wasn't before. Right? Starting this year, Randall's Island is in my district. I think there's great potential because that's a big swath of land. And the imagination for what we can do there has no boundaries.
I wrote a proposal. Build a school and make sure Black and Hispanic children get the same things as Asian and white children, and the same, so they can compete.
Okay, now,
I'll give you that proposal. I just want to say,
give us the proposal.
You know what I like? Solutions, brother.
Okay, but give me the proposal.
Here's the proposal. I will write it to you, and I will give it to you.
Give me the proposal. Now, with regards to specialized high schools, you know, when I was in the state legislature, I was the proponent of getting rid of those tests and making sure that across the city, right, in every school, you get a percentage of each of those kids from every school that have. In fact, I just saw yesterday in the news that SUNY has eliminated their tests. For admissions, meaning that a high-stake testing, one test cannot determine, right? Cannot determine the ability of a young person. Each school has tremendous talent in there, and so each school should be accessing those specialized schools like Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, and the rest, right? But you know, every district should have a specialized school as well. I believe in that, right? First and foremost, I believe it, and I was a proponent of that legislation because it is a local issue. I was a proponent of that legislation when I was in the state assembly. Now, in addition to that, give me the proposal on Randall's Island, and we'll work on it. But there are other venues. For example, let me give you an example. As I said, we're working the police department and a particular project. Further uptown, I'm working with a fencing program, right? You know, for kids in the armory, right? And soccer, you know, it's not just baseball and basketball. Kids should be exposed to all kinds of sports and all kinds of opportunity. Arts, music, and that requires funding. But you work with me, try to bring additional dollars to the neighborhood to address those needs. The next, no, we're going back over here now. Okay, la señora, yeah, over here. These are the last three, and then I'll get you. You're next. Anybody in the middle?
There's a lady right there. She wants to speak.
That's not the middle. No. Over here first. Go ahead. Haga la pregunta.
Hi, thank you. My name is Alyssa Cartagena, and I go to West Side as well. And we are currently in the West Side, and they're trying to move the office building on the East Side. And for many reasons, it's unfair because we will lose the daycare that we take our kids to, and also the doctor's office. Yeah, I don't know. There's many reasons it is unfair, but I was just wanting to ask you if we can have your support, if your office can write us a letter, that would be greatly appreciated, because, yeah, it feels very unfair because we're going to go to an office building and we're not going to get any of our resources. We're losing everything. But thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Now, I understand my team is telling me that the daycare program will stay, but the school is being proposed to be moved, right?
Right. The life care program will stay in the building.
Okay, and so, Diana, I just heard about the issues this week, right? About the West Side issue this week. So I will be addressing that, but let me hear from the councilman.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Can you give this girl a round of applause for coming and speaking out for her community? And the baby's beautiful, and I heard you testify the other day at the hearing. So what's happening is that we have a school here. It's a beautiful school, the Young Women's Leadership Academy. It's a great, all right. And they have
1 and 2.
Yeah. So the Young Women's Leadership Academy is against me. It's run out of space. And so they are asking for more room, and the Board of Education found another space on the west side, but that building is being occupied by students like her, and we shouldn't be sacrificing one group of kids for another.
Absolutely, love you guys.
And so we have been in conversations with the DOE all week. I know Gail Brewer, it's been a thorn in their side as well. And there is a coalition of us that have been pushing. We are trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure it out, but we agree with you that we agree that the Young Women's Leadership needs a bigger space, and that we should help them find one. But we don't want that to mean that these kids have to move out of the only building that they know and love, because that building is different, right? And she's a young mom. When she goes to school in the morning, she can drop off her baby there, and she can go to classes with the peace of mind that her baby's okay, and that she's still in the building, and then she can finish her classes and go out and pick him up and go home with her, right? So we want to preserve that, but thank you so much for being here.
1, 2. In the middle, who was it I had? I'm going to pass right here, the young man here. Go ahead. And then in the back, yes.
I don't really have a question.
Please, a question, please.
My question, but what I have to say will address everything in this room.
But if you ask us a question, we'll love you. Come on, give us a question. That's why we're here, to listen to your concerns so we can answer.
Well, my concern is this. My name is Tiny. I'm a former gang member, and we do public safety dinners, just like this brother said, and most of the people on this side. I came here today to ask you guys, would y'all come to our public safety dinner that we host? Okay. We have been hosting these dinners around the Bronx, but this is going to be our first dinner in Harlem.
Are you talking about Patterson?
Yes, ma'am. How are you? And she knows who I am. Because I listen, young lady, I've been following you and you have been helping us. The questions that most of the people have in this room is the issue of public safety, housing. That's all good. But we have to have a forum where we can have our kids come into a room.
That's correct.
We had our dinner at the Bronx River Center. We have a dinner with the Circle of Brothers.
So where's your dinner?
Our dinner will be May 12th at the Church of Scientology. And I don't want y'all to get mixed up because it's the Church of Scientology.
No, that's all right. We'll go there.
No, yes, because you know what? They're opening their doors.
That's right.
Where nobody's opening their doors to our kids, but I ain't a Scientologist. Please don't get me. But I will do my work in there because they are opening their doors to the community.
So please, what day of the week is that?
It's on a Friday. Public safety dinners on Friday.
If I'm in the city, I'm not in Washington, I'll be there.
And I would like to address Ms.
The lady in the back, she had a, yes. Give her the mic, let's see if it works.
Thank you. I'm a resident of East Harlem, Mitchell-Lama Co-op, and I've been a resident for 50 years. Who is in charge of those Mitchell-Lama Co-ops? We got a new management. Well, first, the old management company were rogues. We got a new management in the middle of the pandemic. People windows. This is a North community, so that means at least 40% are seniors. People windows, every window in the apartment has been locked for 4 and 5 years. People are paying $6,000 for terraces that they cannot use that have been locked for upwards of 6 to 8 years. They are putting ramps in. As a handicapped person, they're putting ramps in, and they're saying they're authorized ADA accessible, and I'm looking at them and seeing the danger of these ramps and different things that they will not do that make the building accessible to seniors. And we are suffering a lot of physical damage. We can't open the doors without assistance. I can't get over a riser with a motorized chair. I need assistance to get into my building, and they will not respond to us. And the building is $11.99 housing.
Oh, $11.99. The Mitchell-Lama program is run by the state, HCR, right? And there's issues with the capital programs. I'm familiar with $11.99. There was some issues, some funding issues there that I'm concerned, and management issues there. I believe that the old company is now back in, right? No. The new one is horrible.
But they're still asking you to pay the checks.
Okay, so let me give this to Diana.
So Carol, I've invited the Congress member to our next meeting. But we are well aware of the issues. There are a lot of management issues. There's a lot of capital work that's happening. There's not a lot of transparency towards the shareholders. We're on it. We should be having our follow-up meeting at the Thomas Jefferson Recreation Center within the next few weeks. You'll hear about that, and what we're doing is that we're inviting, our counterparts in the federal government, because it is a Mitchell-Lama, and also HPD to the conversation to see how we can, start a conversation to start addressing all of these concerns at 1199.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here. I know that we haven't heard every question, but feel free to come directly to us, and we'll try to answer your question. Thank you for being engaged with your community and being a responsible resident of East Harlem. One last thing, I want to thank the restaurant. We took over their space, so it's impacting them. One last thing, we're trying to retire Roberto Clemente's number 21 from Major League Baseball. Roberto Clemente was not only a major athlete, but he was a civil rights leader as well. God bless you, everybody.